cunts. Don't forget to click the subscribe button.
After that, when we look for our companies and we try to negotiate everything, we see how motivated they are. We talk to them first. We receive an NDA from them.
Okay, no. NDA, then tax returns and financials. If they're not willing to send you tax returns and financials, normally they send you the financials first, and they say it'll take me a few days for my accountants to give me tax. That's a legitimate answer. Okay, but if it goes past a week and they haven't sent you tax returns, they send them to Alex instead to bogus them up.
They're making some stuff up.
Okay, so we get as much information as we can. We compile 3 to 5. When we bring it to the board for the board meeting, for example, we give weekly reports to our board members.
Or not weekly, but I mean updates.
Frequent updates.
Okay.
And, good shit happens or bad shit happens. Do we get an NDA for each of the board members to sign as well?
Well, I don't. Because a board member, by definition, has a fiduciary responsibility. Okay? Now, board members in Russia, whether you got an NDA or not doesn't mean a goddamn thing. Okay? China's the same way, whether you have an NDA. But I mean, where there's a rule of law, board members have a fiduciary responsibility. So they should already, and you can explain that to them. We're not going through the NDA process for the board members because we realize, as you realize, you have a fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest. They know that, but you might just reiterate it and explain it to them. Well, go ahead.
Okay, so since that doesn't really matter in Asia, especially in my country, probably doesn't matter at all either. Okay, so we bring to them the 3 to 5 cases, 10 to 15 minute presentation on each of them, give them the nuts and bolts. Even though for us, we're only thinking about moving part, motivated seller, and how many times EBITDA we can swing for. Then we don't have to give our LOI prior to the board meeting. That can come after.
It can come after. Some of the kids do LOI before, but I mean, it depends on the information you're getting. It also depends on the seller, and it depends on what you've preempted the board with. Because the board's going to follow your lead. I mean, as young and inexperienced, not young because some of you aren't young, but as inexperienced as you are, they're still going to look to you. They know what the corporate governance and the pecking order and shit rolls downhill. And you're at the top of the fucking heap of shit there. So, I mean, the guys that are going to suffer if they decide not to go your way or they try to have a mutiny, I mean, as long as you have control, there's nothing you have to worry about other than the consternation, aggravation of having to go through a board meeting to throw everybody off. But I mean, that happens not often.
So when we're recruiting them for Free Founders Equity, we already have a verbal agreement with them as to how much equity they get.
No. Most aren't going to ask. Most are going to be explained how much equity they get prior to that board meeting. Now, if you have one board member, he's not a board member till the board meeting, and you're working like a dog, and they may, say sarcastically, I've been, for this 5 hours a week has turned into 55 hours a week, and my wife said that, is she going to be able to add this? This actually happened, so I'm repeating something that actually. Is this going to be able to be added ultimately to my 401k? In other words, is he ever going to get any money out of it? And that's his way of saying that, maybe whether his wife said that or not. And then you say, of course, you remember Free Founders Equity. Free Founders Equity. And when you recruit these guys, you don't want their money. You want their time, expertise. That's what you want. Now, occasionally, board members, when you fall $250,000 short or whatever, I mean, the board members will say, let's quit fucking around. And they pony up. Everybody put in 50 or 100 grand. But you don't ask them for the money. But if they volunteer that, and you're not to pay yourself a fucking bonus. The last thing you do is collect money from the board to pay yourself a bonus. Although it sounds like an easy idea, a good idea, especially to the Dutch, but you don't do that.
Okay, so you want their time and their expertise, but then you want to sort of know that they're okay with having this much equity before you stand them at the board meeting with the paper.
Well, I mean, you will send out. Remember, you're sending out an agenda. Right. The agenda says Roberto has 58%. Alex has, as CEO, has 9%. They will see it. We're not hiding any of this.
Okay, so once we have the company, let's say a company that we all agree on, let's say it's $100 million. The way we can structure a deal, commercial debt and sellers finance, we could structure 60% sellers finance and then
60% commercial debt, 40% sellers finance.
Okay, but then don't we want to overfinance?
Yeah, we do. But I remember when you're going to overfinance on the commercial debt side. You're not going to be able to necessarily overfinance. If, let's say, and I don't like to use these terms, LTV, loan to value, is 60%. And the bank will loan you 60% on a $10 million deal, which is $6 million. So the seller finance part is going to be $4 million spread out over time. Well, you can do it $5 million spread out over time. And that, in essence, is the overfinance of 10%. And so then you're going to have money to pay them.
Right. You want to overfinance from the seller's finance?
No. When you're going to have it split 60-40. You're going to control 100% of the cash flow. Okay. The bank isn't going to go above 60. Okay. The only thing that's room that you semi-control is convincing the seller finance to. We're not going to give you 10 million. We're going to give you 11 million. That extra million is going to come at the end, whenever it is, the 12th of never, or whatever, and so you will have extra money in the transaction because you're buying the deal for 11 instead of 10. You're gonna be able to probably pay working capital. You haven't counted working capital yet. You haven't counted line of credit or the overdraft. So you'll be able to pay the money to the you and the board members. The only time you can't pay the board members, the accountants, and the lawyers, and when 100% seller finance, because there's no money. It sounds great. You can get a deal done in 2 days, but there's no shekels to pay out to anybody.
Like that, you could always go like 90% sellers finance. And
well, you could, yeah.
Then that's your 10%.
90% sellers finance is harder because they have to really buy off. 100% seller finance is great, but that means they really bought off on what you had to sell. And when I used to do 100% seller finance, I'd give them a point or two of the holding company as a cherry on top.
But you cannot put out working capital for 100%?
Oh, no, but you're still going to ask, then you have to go to the bank for working capital, and the bank has not approved the credit yet because you've done it 100% seller finance. The first deal, is you might as well think or look at it, you're not going to get any money. The accountants aren't going to get any money. This is for 100% seller finance. And the lawyers aren't going to get any money. Now, other than you, these big accounting firms don't need your fucking little fee. The big lawyers don't need your little fucking fee. The only one that really needs money in the deal is you. Because you're broke, for the most part. Not always, but you're broke. You're, what do they call when you're broke? A word for it? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Busted.
Not a pan to piss in or a window.
To throw it out of. So, don't be as concerned, but when you start to structure the second deal, 60-40 split makes more sense because I want you to get the first deal done. Don't fuck around. Just get the fucking thing done. Leave the commercial finance by itself. You can live another 4 weeks without any money. You've lived all your lives with no money, so all of a sudden you can't live 4 more weeks?
Okay, then once, so from LOI, you just need NDA, LOI, negotiate terms of the deal, sign it.
And then you run like a thief in the night, metaphorically speaking.
That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, there was another question. Yes, sir.
If you do a 100% seller finance deal, can you approach the bank afterwards and ask them for that 10% line of credit?
Sure, but one at a time. One at a time. And don't confuse the issue. Because you have to fill out a paper in the bank. What loans are you? Who are you talking to? What deals do you have on the boil? And the last thing I want you to do is get in trouble for bank fraud. You lie on those documents, depending on what kind of bank it is, it could be a federal offense. Because a bank that is federally insured, FDIC, that's a federal bank. And you fill out the paperwork and you don't tell them about the other seller finance and the notes, etc. You lied on the documentation.
Well, that's why I was asking if that's even doable. I wouldn't want to lie on the...
No, we know, no. Weed man, dun 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 dun.
But I just mean, would they even finance that 10% of...
They might. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Okay.
Absolutely. But then it's going to be in the form of either working capital and or line of credit. You know, you can ask him, to fund your next 3 grows. He's already, then you run like a thief in the night. You go to Tibet, take the money, don't grow anything. Yeah.
Is there a rule of law in Brazil? If you're
yes, there is a rule of law. But if you don't speak Portuguese, don't worry about it. I mean, and we have kids that have gone to, we had a Portuguese guy, veterinarian, I think, last seminar, who, and his wife is Spanish, from Spain, that I believe he's going to go, he's going to shut down, well, I don't know if he's going to shut down his veterinary business. I don't know if that's, but he's going to go to Brazil because, if you speak Portuguese, not that many people speak it, but I mean, Brazil is in chaos. All kind of shit's happening, and all of it's bad. Not too much of it's good. And they certainly have motivated sellers, and they certainly understand seller finance. Just because other people speak different languages doesn't mean they don't understand seller finance, because almost every part of the world understands no money down houses. The housing, because it's been around 50, 60, 70 years. And when you tell them, and you use the example, this $100,000 house, no money down, and you understand that it's no business for your $10 million business. The principles are exactly the same. Exactly the same. And then, because you want to bring it down to numbers that they understand and feel more comfortable with. Just as was aptly mentioned, we're going through these multi-billion-dollar cases to show you the principles are exactly the same. And there's no need for you to, other than the first deal or two, to spend your time on these smaller deals. Because, these big deals are the same principles. The same principles, except on the bigger deals, you're making a lot more money. And it's the same amount of time for the banks on the commercial side. It's just, more zeros. And, like the story when I found out what $1,400,000 was. It's not dissimilar. And you all have been exposed to other deals that may have sounded too rich or too expensive for you, or too big, or not even in your concept. You don't know what you don't know. Well, now I want you to look at all these fucking things, because anything's possible. Anything's possible. And you've seen live and through the webinars, and you've heard Roberto. I mean, it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's fucking not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. And to get rich, not overnight, but it'll seem like overnight. If you're 40, 50 years old, you'll think it's fucking overnight. I mean, all of a sudden in 5 or 6 or 10 months, all this money or all this equity accrues to you, you'll think, what the fuck have I been doing? Well, I don't want to go through all that, but what the fuck have I been doing? Well, and I'll ask, what the fuck have you been doing? Other question. Yep.
So I'm picturing my board looking a lot like yours over there. In your opinion, is like age, sex, race, is that actually important?
Yeah, you should have a gal. And there's at least one qualified gal for every deal around, believe me. For you gals, you're the gal, okay? You can't have another gal. But don't pick ethnicity over quality experience. It's great to have a minority, but if you can't find a minority, but you can, black, yellow, green, there is a minority person that can fill one of your board slots. Absolute. The real minorities are the white people now. They're in the minority. But you want one or two gals, one minority or two minorities. Some of you are minorities, so you can tick that box. You don't have to worry about that. And the average age of the boards are normally 50 to 70. 50 to 70. Once in a while you get a younger one. But the people that you recruit are 50 to 70. And there's no shortage of them, believe me. There's no shortage of them. But as you've been told by the webinars, the board's the easy part. And running them is a bitch. Yeah.
Is there a rule of law in Hungary?
There is, but I mean, that's what Peter is for hospitals. He's on another deal, another $5 million deal. But there is a rule of law, but I mean, if you don't speak Hungarian, you're pissing in the wind.
We get it translated.
Well, you can, but I mean, it's like we had a Mexican kid a few years ago that went to Poland to prove a point, couldn't speak Polish. He was in and exited in less than a year. And he went back to Mexico with the money to prove to his well-to-do family that he could do it. And now he's doing roll-ups in Guadalajara, I believe. And they said, you can't possibly do business in Poland if you can't speak Polish. They told him. And I told him it was going to be hard if you couldn't speak the language. But he went and he rolled up beauty salons, suntan, pedicures, manicures, that kind of thing. And they also somehow, I think they even did Botox in some of those. And he was in and out in less than a year. And not speaking the language. The downside, he fell in love with a Polish girl. Yeah, anyway. But other than that, it worked perfectly, other than he fell in love. You know, I ought to tell the story that he didn't fall in love, but he did fall in love. And I could just imagine him I hope you're watching this, taking this Polish wife back to his high-bred, rich Mexican family. I'm sure that went over like a turd in a punch bowl, you know. Yeah, and he says, we send you there, you know, we wanted you to fuck around. We didn't want you to come back with a wife. But I'm sure I'm exaggerating that. I'm sure she's a lovely girl, So what? She's a lovely girl, you know. Other question. Come on, rent roll. Yes, sir.
Can we crack a bottle of the Guthrie Scotch?
Yeah, you can open it right now. Tonight, it's canapes, champagne. Only one speech to schedule, which is me.
We passing it around?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
You should give Dan the first
Oh, yeah,
cup.
true. They are passing it.
Yeah, here's a glass.
Start on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You opened it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Make sure Dan gets one.
Fair income, mate.
Yeah. Now, is this ordinary income? We're going to ask the Canadian couple to write down all their successes and failures, so we could add a new chapter, or probably a new volume to the book. The What If. We're going to call it What If.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Okay. I from your lips to Allah's ears. The What If. But I mean, for years they told me it didn't work in Canada. But that's like saying it doesn't work in New Jersey. Well, it's harder in New Jersey than Canada. You know what I mean? Believe me, it is. It's quite remarkable. And we have a good reputation. And it hasn't been easy to keep a good reputation for over 25 years with you doing it. I can control my own, but it's next to impossible for me to be able to control all you guys out there. Someplace, somewhere, somebody's telling a lie about QLA as we speak. I just absolutely know it. No, about for YouTube. If I find out any of you that are using my name as your chairman or mentor, and I don't know you, I will come after you legally, and I will exhaust all the money you and the next 5 generations earn by dragging you through the fucking courts. And so we've got a few of that. Now, when somebody uses my name in Ethiopia, it doesn't make a shit. Really, it doesn't make a shit. But somebody uses my name in Rotterdam, why I'm pretty much nowhere to go normally, and I'll sick Winnica on you. There's no shortage of deals and money.
What was your biggest takeaway from us this week? And what was your biggest?
Is that the way that I structure the hardcore now is better than the way I structured it before. Before, Q&A was mostly the last half a day. But as I told you earlier, as I restructured the regular seminar, the sooner I can answer your question, so you have a question and answer and you have the data in your head, the better off you are. The better off you are. Is all the whiskey already gone? Yep. Does everybody have a glass? Yes. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I want you to go out there and rip their head off and shit down their neck. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Cheers to that.
Dan, where's this brewed?
Huh?
Where's this?
Here. It's my own proprietary blend from about 50, 60 miles from here. Now, don't go crazy, girls. Don't go crazy.
It's the last night.
No, see. Yeah.
Regret minimization.
Yeah.
I told myself I wouldn't try this until I hit 50 bills. It's still sitting there. I told myself I wouldn't try this until I hit 50 bills. Like my bottle.
Oh. Well, I mean, you get a bottle tonight at graduation. It's just amazing to me when I look back 25 years, some of the little mice that have sat in this room, are the ones that roared. And the fact that whether you ask questions, you don't ask questions, has no correlation to success out there. The couple of the guys that don't ask questions raise their hand. Well, I didn't ask questions and I'm successful. But it has really no correlation. The only correlation to how successful you are is how bad you want it. It's that, Some of you say you've been poor. And Sally and I will sit down and we'll trade poor stories. But and some of you were just average, middle of the road. Some of you in this room were upper middle class raised. But how hungry you are up here, doesn't matter, whether you're upper middle class. Nobody could ever accuse me of being from an upper middle class neighborhood. I mean, looking at that picture right over there, and it doesn't look any different today. That's 26 years ago. It doesn't look any different. But it's the model has proved itself with regular people being successful. Not just because, I've already said, I can't speak like Dan, blah, 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 and they discount whether they can accomplish it or not. But you've seen some, I won't say, Jason's not a mouse, and Nellie's not a mouse, and Marcus isn't a mouse, and Roberto, I'll let you describe him with your words and not mine, but he's certainly not a mouse. But even the mice, if they're hungry enough, strike out and do fucking deals. And Peter, I'm not accusing you of being the only mouse that I've trained, but I mean, for him to go out and do what he's done is pretty fucking remarkable. And even though we've got teenagers, most recently Josh, I mean, when you think about it, if a teenage kid can go out and do this with no basis, no platform, no education, no fuck all, why can't you? Or more importantly, why shouldn't you? And when we first put Josh as poster boy, I didn't even think about him being Asian. I really didn't, because he's half Korean, which means he's Korean, right? Okay, I didn't even think of that. Didn't even dawn on me that he was Asian.
Even with the statistics.
Yeah. I mean, and he's gone on and he's crushed it. He's wavered a little. But you all will waver. Nobody's perfect. And the last guy that kind of pretended to be perfect, the last time I saw him, he still had nail holes in his hands, from being strung up. And God knows I'm not perfect for sure. But for this business, I'm as close to being perfect as you can get. I mean, for this, the president is the QLA personified, and I didn't know him in that way. We, I guess, hung with the same guys. Mayor Koch, the old mayor of New York, which I believe is dead now. Mayor Wagner, who was the mayor before him. Governor Kerry, the former governor. And so we were in that same ilk. And when you rub elbows with high-performance, super successful people, good shit happens. Just as when you rub elbows with poor thinking, poor mentality people, bad things happen. And the biggest default is for you to stay away from those people as much as humanly possible. And I told you about the Polish kid that moved to South Africa. He left here and moved to South Africa, and he's crushing it. And because just not only black people are doing it in South Africa, white people are doing it in South Africa. But you follow the steps. It's not easy, and Roberto will tell you it's not easy. But he still sits here, living proof, and I can still close my eyes and see you sitting in my office. When that smile that stretched like this, it reminded me of what's that guy, that movie, the crazy guy with his makeup on his face. Yeah, I mean that's what his smile looked like the goddamn Joker in there, and because the permutations that went through his mind. He realized it was a lot of money, but the permutations that went through my mind, I mean, I knew there was more money than he thought. And in 7 months, more or less, from the time you started the seminar to the time you closed the deal, I think, if I remember correctly, and even though that's a long time, but it's certainly, compared to your track record so far, 7 months is nothing. It's not even a heartbeat. And we're fortunate to have him here to be able to share his experience. Yes, sir.
I guess one of the big things I took from what Roberto was saying is that, because his deal was immensely complex, but he said, I learned as I went and I figured it out. You
correct.
Figured it out as you go, or words to that effect. And that was very, very helpful if you're thinking of taking on bigger deals.
Yeah, well, I mean, you should. Well, you should be thinking about taking on bigger deals. These billion-dollar deals that we talked about are no fucking different. And there's egos involved, and you're going to have speed bumps, and even the Pixar Disney deal, boards were in transition. You can just go down and check the list. It's exactly what we've talked about. But I've been thrown out, not to some of the jobs, from a company I founded. Rick Scott was thrown out. I mean, so it's not the worst thing that happened. You know, it's you think at the moment you think it's the worst thing that ever happened, but it's not. As long as you walk away and you got money, all the money in your pockets. You know, I say you call me anything. I'm an American. You can't hurt my feelings. I've got rhino skin. But that day they tossed me out of my ass. I mean, you know, I won't say I did any deep reflection. I realized that 2 or 3 mistakes I'd made up until that time, and I could have precluded some of it. But I mean, the investors needed somebody to fall on a sword when Saddam Hussein invades a country that owns 30% of the company. Kuwaiti government owned 30% of me. Somebody had to fall on the sword, you know. So and they weren't going to fall on the sword, so it was me that's going to fall on the sword. So I went from the penthouse to the shit house in about a week, with a lot of money, you know. And all my money became free and clear, or all my stock became free and clear, so I could sell it. So the bad news, I was tossed out. The good news is I was tossed out with a lot of money that I could, although they tried to not let me have it, but I mean, I had it. And so if the worst case scenario is you follow the steps and you get thrown out with a lot of money, worse things could happen. But you've got the tools. And now to play the financial orchestra as you're the conductor. And what you now realize is, let's say there's 40 instruments in an orchestra, you only need one, commercial debt, tied to a motivated seller. And we've already talked about the divisions of motivation. And if they don't send you your tax returns and your financials right away, first financials, you can give them a little time before they send you your tax returns, they're not motivated. They're not motivated. What time is it?
It's about 5:30.
Half 5.
Okay. Any other questions about anything?
Do you have any more of these bracelets?
What? Ask him. Why? Do you want to sell them at the airport, or you want to give them away with a lid, a weed, and you want to have one of these in every.
That's my side hustle.
Oh, your side hustle. That's a side sell.
Weekly report, same format.
Yeah. Okay. You'll get a. Thank you for reminding me. You will get a email from Thelma saying the format of the report, and you will get when. In theory, they're due. The first one's due. And all the reporting now and the Zoom calls are dependent on my travel schedule because I don't do them while I'm traveling. And so, but you'll be notified in the next 48 or 72 hours from Thelma. But no, it's more slightly more restrictive than the report from your day, and it's a lot more restrictive. Not restrictive; it has more information, more questions than the report of your day. But it's 80, 85, 90% the same. And again, I don't know. You're only fooling yourself if you're not telling me the truth. But the new section in the report is what am I not telling Dan? You had that? Oh, because we had already instituted that. And I get all kind of crazy shit. I mean, it's unbelievable. Most of which is so unbelievable I delete. Because I don't want to, and I don't want them to come back and say that I had it on my machine. So if there's no questions, guys, gals, good luck to you. See you tonight. Thank you. Thank you. See you tonight.